when you were making this movie?
Yeah, I would say that we were all pretty bonded, and everybody, Anjelica and Raul and Carel and Christina, they were all so kind to us as, we were kids. So kind to us, and I know, I spent hours in your trailer learning things from you and asking a million questions.
Asking if you could drive.
Wanting to drive, yes.
I think there were a few golf carts that actually got crashed in Paramount. Just a few times.
A couple of golf cart incidents on set.
Yeah.
Who was the worst? And when I say the worst, who is the most adventurous with the golf carts?
I would always instigate stealing them and then run away, and Jimmy would get in trouble.
Yeah, she started it, I crashed them, and it kind of went downhill.
Well, you know what? Before we get much further, we do have an empty chair here, and that does feel even a little too odd for the Addams Family. So I do want to maybe. Do we have one more member of the Addams Family we can bring up? Yeah, I think we do. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, how about Uncle Fester himself, Christopher? So, Chris, were you up to some Uncle Fester stuff? Doing Uncle Fester stuff? You were up to some Uncle Fester stuff before you came up on the stage? Yeah. We were speaking earlier about the experience of making this movie and that sort of family feel, and it does feel appropriate then to acknowledge somebody that's not with us, who's Raul Julia, who is just so incredible as Gomez. Boy, I want to start off here by talking about what your memories of working with Raul were, and what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of that experience?
He was a perfect gentleman. He always...
There it is.
He was always first on set, last to leave. He was incredibly amenable. He'd do anything you asked him to. He was a great dancer. I'd get really grumpy around dancing rehearsals, which I felt were unnecessary because I was such an excellent dancer. And he would insist on being there on time and staying all the way through. He was consummate professional, really great, really fun, and he'd always sing between scenes, between takes. He always would sing full opera, so he kept us entertained.
Christopher, how about you? Do you have any strong memories of Raul?
Yeah, I remember, speaking of his singing, he did a lot of singing in some Broadway musicals. Mr.
Kiss of the Spider Woman. Don Quixote.
De la Mancha. But I remember once we had a scene when it was like nighttime, Italy, gondolas, someone like in a tavern, supposedly.
We were always in a cavern.
Yes. And it was very romantically lit. And when nobody was shooting, Raul got up and would sing these arias. And it was so beautiful and romantic and very wonderful. He had a big, big heart, very warm person, very loving.
And Christina and Jimmy, how about you? Did he serve as sort of like was there like any father figure stuff coming from him as well? Any lessons learned there?
Well, yes. He, as we've already covered, he loved singing. That was amazing. He used to play, at least with me, he used to play jacks and cards, chase me around, not telling me when I did something wrong, which was pretty much 99.9% of the time. All around, he was just a great man. I mean, I can't tell you, I'm half Greek and my grandparents came from Greece. We were shooting in Burbank, I think it was by the golf course, the facade of the house. During lunch, he actually scaled the side of the hill with my grandmother, picking what he perceived to be a spinach, which probably could have been, could not have been. But that just kind of showed you what type of person he was, caring, and just wanted to be involved in a part of things. That's the man I know and remember.
Yeah, he was really, really incredible. He was just such a brilliant actor and so much fun to be around, so charming. And yeah, he sung opera at the top of his lungs and danced, and he taught us Puerto Rican songs. And then he also seemed to he was just so empathetic and generous, and I think he could tell sometimes when we as kids were nervous. And I remember several times feeling really nervous, and he would call me over and start singing a song with me or teaching me a little dance or something to just make things easier for me and sort of break up how anxious I was. And he was just so lovely and warm. Really incredible man.
How about for you, Carl? Any Raoul memories come to mind?
Well, apart from this wonderful singing repertoire of all the songs he knew, another memory I have of him is after the movie, we had to do all these press junkets, and he got mad as hell about that. Because it went on from 7 in the morning till somewhere in the evening. So at a certain point he grabbed me and he said, "Come, we're gonna go to the bar." And so we sat in the bar and he said, "This is all on the Paramount staff. So what is the most expensive bottle you have here?" And so we drank a lot of very expensive cognac. And even though I'm not an enthusiastic drinker of liquor, of course I couldn't pass up on this one.
I love that everybody seems to have a little bit of a mischievous streak. It fits. Anjelica, you and I were talking a little bit backstage about one of my favorite aspects of Morticia, and it's this intensity that comes through her eyes. And you've talked in the past about how you found a lot of delivering Morticia coming through the eyes. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how hard it was to maybe focus on that aspect of your performance when there was so much craziness going on around you, staying locked into Morticia like that?
Well, initially I tried to emote with my body, which was very difficult because my dress was very restrictive. So you'll see in the first Addams Family, I turned my entire body when I'm supposed to just turn my head. So that became a thing. So, for instance, if I was working with Christopher, I'd go full half circle. And then it occurred to me that I didn't have to do that I could actually make a shorthand out of it. And so I wound up just doing half of what I normally would do. And it seemed to work, so it got less and less, and the lesser it got, the more Barry Sonnenfeld would compensate by lighting me a certain way. So in the end, he used what he called a tweening, which is a light, a small light, that just illuminated my eyes, and so I basically didn't have to do much. And that was really convenient.
Oh man, and Christopher, something that I notice from a lot of the characters that you have played is that they cut an immediately recognizable silhouette. When I think of Judge Doom, when I think of Doc Brown, these are characters that have an instantly recognizable look. And I want to know for Fester, he also has that very iconic sort of potato sack dress that he wears. Was that helpful getting into that costume for finding who Fester was? Or did you already have a pretty good idea of how you wanted to play the character?
Yes, a bit of both. I mean, certainly, because I'm not rotund.
No.
You know, I'm not rounded out.
Not quite the same body shape as Fester.
No. So I knew I had some kind of padding, heavy, thick coats. So, and that just helps me get there.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a pretty good idea. I kind of grew up on Fester. I used to see Charles Addams was always I confessed to would be there. I had a fondness for him. I enjoyed his wickedness, his brand of wickedness. So, when I got a call.
Did anyone else find getting into... Oh, I was going to ask, did anybody else find getting into their costume for the first time, like getting an insight into your character that maybe you didn't when you first read it? Like, did you learn anything about your character when you first got into that costume? No. Cool.
I had shorts and a black and white striped shirt.
Well, this is what I want.
Mine was kind of easy.
Yours in particular, Jimmy, the note that I took while I was watching the first two movies, just in big letters, Pugsley is a style icon. Crushed red velvet, he's got that little weird frocked thing, shorts with everything, and it kind of feels like anything Pugsley wears, you can show up to the Met Gala in that and just be fun. Yeah, there's a lot of good style in this movie. Christina, I do want to talk to you real briefly about the fact that you serve as this really important bridge, I think, between sort of multiple generations of the Addams Family, the way that we experience that franchise. You appear in Wednesday as Marilyn there, and I want to know how it felt for you. Yeah, I want to know how it felt for you personally, being able to be that kind of bridge, and how it was being on that set for you.
Well, I don't see myself as a bridge. Unfortunately, I don't have that sort of objectivity and perspective. I was thrilled to work with Tim again and to get to go and be, on in the Wednesday show. It was really fun. It was exciting, and I loved this experience. I loved playing Wednesday, but I would have to be a sociopath to be able to view myself as a bridge.
Well, we'll leave that to you. I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of the Wednesday fans out there were probably very delighted to see you, giving your Wednesday stamp of approval there. So I think everyone's pretty grateful for that. Carel, for you, another thing that I notice watching these movies, just the fine detail of it all, is the way that Lurch is used to get in and out of scenes in these really funny ways, whether it's you doing something, as simple as dusting, or something way more weird and that's just in the background. Do you have any memories of stuff like that you shot that maybe didn't make it into the movie that you wish had? Any of those small Lurch moments, or do you have a favorite Lurch moment in the movie?
No, the one most memorable was when I had darts thrown at me. But yeah.
The darts. Actually, that reminds me, Christopher, there's another instance of a near miss coming at somebody's head, just like the dart thing. There's a scene in the first movie where Raoul flips you over and then throws a knife at your head. And usually what I would have thought was, oh, they reversed the footage. But it doesn't actually look like it does. Do you remember how Barry shot that scene of that knife coming so close to your head?
Exactly. In fact, I haven't thought of that scene until just now.
It's so close to your eyeball, it is very uncomfortable for me.
I should
Should remember a knife coming that close.
but
Yeah. Well, Anjelica, I want to ask you, something I heard you say recently is that you're a big fan of another big family from TV, the Schitt's Creek, the Rose family. You're a big Schitt's Creek fan. And something occurred to me, there is actually a lot of crossover between the Rose family and the Addams family. They're both kind of fish out of water. Everyone else kind of sees them as strange. Do you think that Moira and Morticia would have been friends if they lived in the same town? It kind of seems like those two characters would have a lot to talk about.
I think they'd have been sisters.
Morticia, Moira, they almost sound like sisters.
Yeah, definitely. And also for myself, I have to say that one of my most amused moments was seeing Professor with two straws coming out of his nose when he was trying to enchant Debbie in number 2. I thought it was incredibly charming.
Do you have any on you right now, Christopher, you want to throw in there? Any breadsticks to put in your nose? Did you bring them with you? You didn't get my text? I want to talk now real quick. Another one of the elements of this movie that I think people overlook, another member of the family, is Thing. How difficult, do any of you have any strong memories of seeing a Thing scene filmed and wondering, how is this going to look in the movie? Because there's more practical effects that go into it than you would think, I think, no? Yeah, is there like a specific, does everyone have like a favorite Thing moment in the movie?
I was the opposite. I'd get really mad when Thing was working because he took forever. And I'd be stuck in my dress, in my trailer, counting the hours. And Thing would just go on working and working and working. And finally I'd call Barry and say, I have to talk to you. And he'd show up with Scott Rudin in my trailer with bad excuses as to why Thing wasn't working. And sometimes it took hours. And got really mad.
Another thing about the Addams Family that I really, really enjoy is its relationship. I'm gonna throw the word out there. Its relationship to the word normal, and what the Addams Family has to say about the idea of what being normal is. And for each of you, maybe, what does that conjure for you? What does the Addams Family represent to you in terms of that family unit?
I mean, we always sort of said, or I feel like I've heard people say that a lot, just that in a lot of ways, they are a perfect family because they accept each other for who they are, they accept themselves for who they are, and they're kind and loving and generous with each other, genuinely. So,
Another scene that I really, really enjoy from the Addams Family, and I think it kind of speaks to this idea of normality and how the Addams Family relate to it, is the school play scene from the first movie, in which Jimmy and Christina here both go at each other with swords and lots of fake blood ensues. Do you have any Was that a fun scene to film, or was working with all the fake blood in that scene like kind of overwhelming?
I thought it was really great. We had a really good time. Remember how fun that was?
That was a lot
It was
of fun.
really fun.
I will tell you though,
You
that
could
stuff
point your
stains.
blood. You could point your blood at people and spray them with it.
And it would take them 3 days to remove it. That was
Oh
the
yeah,
tough
at that
part.
time they didn't have the blood they have now that's easy to remove.
Yep.
And I'm so scarred by this that still to this day when I'm working and they're like, we're gonna put blood on you, I'm like, no, that stuff doesn't come off. And they're like, it's not 1992 anymore. We have new stuff. But at the time it was like corn syrup and red food dye. So it would literally stain you for. So we were red for a very long time afterwards, basically.
And the even more fun part is I think we had to do the fencing.
Yeah.
The
The
training for the
fencing
fencing,
and
that was
the
a lot.
It was good.
There's a lot of fence, a lot of swordplay in these movies. Another thing that I kind of want to talk about here is this is directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who, of course, this was Barry Sonnenfeld's first movie that he directed. Shot a lot of movies for the Coen brothers before that, including Raising Arizona, which I think is one of the most visually impressive comedies ever, and he really brings that visual flair to the Addams Family. How much of an impact do you think Barry's eye had on the lasting effect of the Addams Family?
I think it had a huge effect. I mean, he shot it in such an iconic way. You know, like I am not a photographer, so I don't have the vocabulary to discuss it. But you know, they're all the frames are really strong, impactful, sort of iconic images, and you know, even when you like in the same way that Raising Arizona is very iconically shot. But yeah, I think his eye, and he was the director, his direction had a ton to do with how lasting this movie was for people, or these movies.
Another question I have here is, because each member of the Addams Family is so distinct and iconic in their own rights, for each of you, I'd like to know if there's anything that you see out in the world that immediately conjures your character to mind for you. Like Anjelica, when you're out and about, is there anything that you see that instantly reminds you of Morticia?
Well, just finding moments of amusement in places where they don't belong. So, basically inappropriate humor. And whenever I see a tight dress, my mind darts back to Morticia. It had a lot to do with discomfort under pressure. And also, I think having a perfect relationship with my opposite, with my in this case, my Romeo, Fester.
What goes on behind the doors of that house is nobody's business. Nobody's business. Christopher, how about for you? What brings Fester to mind for you out in the world?
Well, I kind of tried it when I was watching him in cartoons. He wasn't out to cause harm or mayhem. He was kind of more subtle than that. He liked pranks, I felt. He liked to do things that might screw up your day, but really didn't. There was no big injury, but little things. I can't think of one at the moment. But
Christina, how about you?
banana
Yep.
walking by, something like that. So, yeah.
Christina, how about you? What brings Wednesday to mind for you when you're out and about?
I think one of the main things about Wednesday that's always stayed with me is that, you know, it's a little girl that's so true to herself and so able to stand up for herself. And so I always think about Wednesday when I failed at doing that. Like when somebody tells you, like when like, you know, somebody tells you to smile or something, and I'm like, I always think, oh, what a jerk. You know what I mean? Like Wednesday would never have done that. So those kinds of things always remind me of her.
Jimmy, how about anything bring Pugsley to mind for you when you're out and about?
My answer's simple: missing stop sign and screeching tires.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's one of the moments in the movie, and there's a few of these, but that moment where Pugsley walks in with the stop sign, those are moments that directly recreate the art of Charles Addams, and I think that's the sort of thing that when you keep returning to these movies, you notice that, and again, it speaks to that attention to detail that Barry had in putting it together. And Carl, what brings Lurch to mind for you when you're out and about?
What brings Lurch to mind is Lurch. I remember when I arrived in Hollywood, people would always walk up to me and say, oh, you're Lurch, right? And I would say, no, I'm not. And then sometimes they would get really angry. So when I had my meeting with Barry Sonnenfeld and the producer, it was a very short meeting. They said, well, what do you think? And I told him, I said, well, I think it's about time because that's what they always see in me. And so that was it.
Christopher, for you, another thing that I really like about Fester across both Addams Family and Addams Family Values is that in the first movie, he is a con man. He is running a con on the Addams Family. But in the second movie, he is the one being conned. He is the one that thinks that he is in love and is being tricked. I want to know which of those sort of versions of Fester you preferred playing. The tricker or the tricky?
Tricker.
The tricker.
Yeah. I mean, to have tricks played on you is not something you volunteer for. Somebody goes out of their way to make you look like a fool. So where does that leave me?
Another really iconic scene from the first movie that I love, Anjelica, of yours, is when you are reading to a classroom full of children and really disturbing them and making them cry. And I want to know, first my question is, were you on set with the kids reading all those things at the same time, or did they bring the kids out?
Yes, I was on set reading to them, and one started to cry, and I thought, oh, here we go. And soon, the entire room, with about 20, 25 children, were screaming at the top of their voices. And I could barely continue. I'd forgotten that was still in the movie.
Oh yeah. Yes, you are on record, unfortunately, making a room full of children cry. I'm sorry. And speaking of children, I think this is actually a great way into my next question, which is that I certainly started watching The Addams Family when I was very young, and was very enamored with its relationship to darkness and things that may be a little taboo and the way that it handles those things. And for each of you, I'd like to know why you think that Addams Family is so appealing to kids of a young age. Maybe Anjelica, we'll start with you.
Because we're doing all the wrong things. And getting a lot of attention for it. A lot of good attention.
That's a good point. And Christopher, I know you mentioned that you were a fan of the Addams Family from a young age, and especially Fester. And so, what was it about Fester as a kid that really connected with you? Like, why did you like Fester especially?
It was a time of pranks to he had a certain kind of evilness about him, but it wasn't. It was more mischief, I felt, and that's kind of fun.
And Christina, I know Wednesday is like a huge role model for a lot of kids. Like, do you think that they come to it looking for almost like permission to be different? Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, I'm sure that's it for people in terms of, like, you know, if you're going to view her as a role model, I feel like that's the only sort of value she has as a role model, is sort of like being true to who you are, and it's okay to be different, and, you know, not pandering to other people and their expectations. But I do, like, to your point about kids loving the Addams Family, I remember showing my son the Addams Family when he was 6, and he just kept looking at me and saying, "Oh, Mom, you're so naughty." Like, he just was so thrilled that all these people were so naughty. Like, he couldn't believe it. So I think that has a lot to do with its appeal for children.
Yeah. Jimmy, Carl, anything on that? On why kids like the Addams Family so much? Why kids in particular seem to get into the Addams Family at a young age?
I think they all want a family like the Addams Family.
Yeah.
They want to be part of that.
I think that's a very succinct way to put it. I think that everybody, it's the thing that you sort of forget about the Addams Family, is that they are incredibly, in their way, very loving and accepting of each other. And I think that even through all the macabre stuff that surrounds that, I think it's nice to sort of come back to that at the end of the day. I do everyone up here has been kind enough to open the floor up to some audience questions. So I wonder if we could maybe if we have some mics positioned down here. I know we have some fans who would like to ask some questions. Let's go. I see a bright blue Warner Brothers hat right here. You want to give us your name and your question, please?
Hello.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Nico. Big thank you for you to be here. I wanted to know, your performance is so unique, so good, each character. So I wanted to know, like, any conversations that you have with the director at the beginning of the film to bring those characters alive. Thank you.
Yeah, any like early conversations with Barry about how you wanted to approach the character? Anyone remember any of those?
My first question to Barry, we had a meeting at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I walked in and I sat down, and my first question to him was, "Why not share?" Which he attempted to answer. I don't really remember what he said, but he convinced me.
Christopher, do you remember kind of those early conversations with Barry about like how you wanted to approach Fester, and anything that he wanted to do with Fester that you wanted to kind of talk to him about?
I don't think so.
No. Cool. Anybody else? Any of those early conversations with Barry jump to mind?
I know that they were endlessly trying out little pieces of prosthetics and all kinds. There was no end to it. And finally, Anjelica's personal makeup person said, "Oh, he doesn't need all that stuff. Here, let me do it." And she did a few things with a brush, and there it was.
It is such an iconic look. Let's get another question here. How about green t-shirt right down in front?
Angelica, so for the witches, how uncomfortable or comfortable was the prosthetic?
How comfortable or uncomfortable was the prosthetic in The Witches? That's a lot going on there. How many hours in the makeup chair for that?
About 7 on a good day. No, about 5. And then there was the constant having to keep it alive. So, because there'd be long periods where you weren't working or waiting for it. And I'd be in my trailers falling apart. So it would take a couple of hours of restoration between scenes. And it got very tiring. Not moving was a big factor because there was no way you could jump out of your trailer and go down the street, have a cup of coffee or anything like that. So it was the repetition of having to do nothing that really got to me.
But it paid off because that look is just so incredible. How about you, right here behind? Yeah, hi there. Yeah.
Hi. What part about your characters do you think you relate the most to?
That's a great question. What part of your characters do you relate the most to? What do you see the most in Morticia in you?
Beauty, kindness, gentleness.
What's your most Fester-like quality, Christopher?
I don't know, just loud, makes a little trouble.
Christina?
I would say I've never been much of a joiner. Like Wednesday is also not one.
Yeah, Jimmy?
Oh, the same thing it's always been is trouble, which I'm still getting into.
And Carl, how about you?
I guess endurance, you have to put up with the family.
Lurch has the most patience of anybody in the Addams family. I think he's got the most patience. All right, let's go. How about glasses right here in the middle?
Hello, tell us about doing the music video Addams Groove with MC Hammer.
Yes! Addams Groove, the MC Hammer music video. What does everybody remember about that? Christina, you all right? You having some MC Hammer memories?
I still can't dance. That's all I'm gonna say.
He was really nice. He was really nice to us. Didn't he buy us like little mini motorcycle things?
Yeah, I think they were the motorized little three-wheeler.
Like little ATVs. Yeah.
Yep.
He was really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice.
That song gets stuck in your head. Oh my gosh. Do we have another question here? Thank you for the question. How about right here in the middle? Sorry, yes, you, yeah, sorry. Black t-shirt, Elvira t-shirt.
Hi. Do you feel like there are any movies or TV shows that you were in that you don't get asked about enough, but you really liked being in?
Ooh, that's a good question. Any projects that you've done that don't get brought up to you very often that you wish you could talk about more, something you're especially proud of? Buckaroo Banzai, maybe. I love Buckaroo Banzai. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody here is pretty psyched about the Addams Family today. I know that. Let's get a thank you for the question. How about the lady with the mustache right here? Oh wait, Waluigi specifically. It looks like Waluigi.
Oh my gosh, you guys are all incredible, and gosh, so many movies that I love. I have two questions. One for Anjelica. I wanted to know what type of dates do you think Gomez took you on as Morticia to woo you? And then for Christopher, I love you in Taxi, and it's such a great show. And I wanted to know what characters attract you when you're reading a script or when you hear about them. So those two questions.
So we'll start with Anjelica. So that question was, what dates Morticia and Gomez went on, do you think? What kind of, like some like grave robbing maybe? Moonlit grave robbing?
Probably a bit of grave robbing, but mostly flirtatious, unspoken, very private love affair.
That's a good answer. And then Christopher, that question for you was, what do you look for in a script that really kind of catches your eye and makes you want to do it?
Something that just seems right at you.
Yeah, just look for something that grabs you. Oh, just into the microphone. All right, do we have any more questions here? How about this guy right down here?
This question is mostly for Christina and Jenny. Christina, that character of Wednesday is basically my love for gothic girls. That character I grew up with. Anyway, how was it filming that scene, that Thanksgiving scene? Basically, we're now in October, almost, November. How was it filming that scene, where that's the whole scene of where you guys take over the camp, basically?
Which scene? I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Family Values.
Yeah, which scene? The camp scene?
The
fire scene?
Thanksgiving camp scene.
Okay,
The
that
music.
was really fun. There were a lot of special effects. There was fire. I got to light a match off of my shoe, which I'd always wanted to do. Yeah, it was great. It was really fun.
I know we have it. Can we get a mic down to this side? I know we have a couple questions coming from over here. How about the guy in the green hat right here? Yeah.
My question is, what was your favorite scene from the movies? Mine was Gomez and Fester dancing the mamushka.
Dancing the Mamushka. So favorite scene from either of the Addams Family movies? Do you have one, Anjelica?
I loved giving birth. It was so easy, so pleasant. And basically it was like a hiccup. It was really delightful to do. And it signaled the start of the second Addams Family. I loved it.
Do you have a favorite scene, Christopher?
The Mamushka, doing that with Raul, involved a lot of choreography and a lot of fun.
How about you, Christina?
I just remember really loving that last scene with Joan Cusack, where she's ranting about her childhood as Debbie. I remember filming that and just really enjoying watching her give that monologue.
She's so good. Jimmy, how about you? A favorite scene?
Probably the turkey dance. Because I was trying not to fall over, so I was trying to remember how to do it.
Yeah.
And not to tip. That was one.
I love that scene. Oh my gosh. Carl, how about you?
Trying to hand out candy on Halloween with all the kids running away. That actually happened to me. I was opening the door with my daughter, who was this size by then, and all the kids ran away screaming. So I had some experience with it.
So connected that way. We have time for one more question. Let's go. I see green hair. I see some green hair over there. Yeah. Or the light. No, oh yeah. Then maybe it's not green. Maybe the light's hitting the white shirt right there on the left. Yeah. Hi. Yes. Yeah.
I just want to thank you for the inspirations. I'm from Brazil, so for me it's very great to see you guys in person. And I just want to say thank you for the question.
All the way from Brazil. Wow. Well, you know what? Hey, while we're talking, why don't we all thank the Addams Family here for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot more LA Comic-Con to come, everybody. Have a